Hello and welcome to an episode that deals with international public relations. I'm Amrita Ghosh Kumar and our subject expert today is Professor Iqbal Sachdeva. Professor Sachdeva is working as a public relations, media and communications specialist. He is also an author, a journalist and a cartoonist. Backed by a long stint in public relations, advertising and several other areas in management in a US multinational, and a degree in journalism, and passionately involved in teaching in several business schools and universities, he also runs a blog, corporatehumbug.blogspot.com, which carries articles and a few hundred cartoons. We would be today discussing international public relations, understanding the universality of PR process, the four-step system, scan the environment, make a communication plan, implement the plan, evaluation of impact. Scan environment of some countries of world, cultural, political, social and economic. Draw up communication plan, implement and evaluate impact. Introduction. Public relations is an all-embracing discipline. It seeks to address several issues concerning all aspects of the management of an organization, namely marketing, manufacturing, material and finance, or even promoting or demoting an idea or an issue. The whole world belongs to public relations, and particularly when an organization is involved in global business. Since no organization can afford to plunge into the large and complicated pool of diversities that are prevalent in different regions of the world, it is necessary that the people involved in the process must do some serious and tough homework to perceive a clear picture of the diversities and similarities of the target markets wherein the company or organization wants to do business. The experienced marketing professionals and public relations person knows fully well that the host country is always different than the home country. Therefore, doing the necessary research and scanning is necessary. That is the first step in the right direction, without which the total operation would be like drifting in the ocean in a rudderless ship. Therefore, let us acquaint ourselves with the process of practicing public relations with special references in the international areas. Making public relations work for you. Public relations to many is some wishy-washy thing which means wearing a broad smile on one's face and distributing goodies. A perception like this lends rather a non-serious connotation to a profession as demure as public relations. PR actually is the science of an art sometimes called the engineering of consent or the management of human behavior through creative communications based on truth and full information, in other words. PR is a planned activity with creative ramifications. Scam, taken from the current parlance, facilitates the understanding and practice of this profession. Each letter in scam has a loaded meaning and represents an important aspect. Scan the environment, create a communication plan, action or implementation, measurement or evaluation of impacts. Figure, the PR window. As such, it is a four-step system of running a public relations program or campaign for seeking a change in public responses. The four quadrants in the figure show the four steps of the system, and the dotted line outside represents the constant feedback throughout the public relations campaign program. Step 1. Scan the environment. As a first step, public relations people are expected to be visionaries, but the vision does not come to them just like that. Whereas the basic knowledge and education are a prerequisite, they must train themselves to scan the environment in which they function. With their inborn imagination and quest for knowledge, they should know something of everything and everything of something. And they should know their publics or the target audiences, which may include employees, stakeholders, customers, dealers, government functionaries, and even the legislatures, etc., at whom they need to beam the communication messages for generating the required responses, for soliciting their consent on the issues, services, and products. Since these publics are influenced by the environment in which they live, it should be on the active agenda of PR people to continuously scan and update their knowledge about various factors which influence behavior pattern of target publics. The factors can be socio-economic situation, the political structure of the country, religions, faiths, beliefs and myths, group dynamics of the young and the old males, females, professionals, intellectuals, lifestyles of living, eating, sex, education levels, media habits. A continual environment scan is essential because it helps a professional to avoid some dangerous and costly mistakes. For example, it may not be appropriate to tell libbers in the US to refrain from bathing topless in the swimming pools without risking popularity. Or we may be committing a dangerous mistake of advocating the nutritious value of beef sausages in the religiously vegetarian districts of South India. For instance, the most creatively produced message in the English language may not cut any ice if people don't read or understand English. A PR person, because of lack of some information, might unknowingly take an anti-constitutional stance if he does not know the constitutional guarantees and liberties prevalent in a particular country. Scanning the world environment. At the very outset, we must recognize the traditional character of the home market like India, which has been a protected market as compared to some of the host countries who have been following more liberal economic policies of free competition. Media structures and systems also would be very different from controlled press to the freedom of the press, which gives clear signals as to what is possible for sharing with people and what are the restrictions. The cultural environment which denotes the habits and lifestyles of the people may not be the same everywhere, though ideally many claim to be the modern citizens of the world. Individual heritage, interests, aspirations, tastes, prejudices and desires differ from country to country. For instance, an American lays a lot of stress in working hard to make more and more money so that he can die rich. And on the contrary, Indians believe in a comfortable and relaxed life immersed in spirituality and living within means. It is a social taboo to shake hands with women in the Arab world, whereas it may be a little offensive to not do so in Europe. As such, for public relation professionals, communications in the international area has to be tailored to meet the local tastes and perceptions. No communication can be wholly successful unless the message is appropriately slanted to its audience in terms of language, expressions, and in conformity with the local cultural norms. The designing and formulation of international communications have to fit well into the psyche of the target audience because of the differences in cultures, languages, customs, traditions, biases, and preferences. Obviously, practicing public relations outside the home country calls for extended self-education. Understanding the economic climate in the host country is also essential. Many nations have changed their mindset and marketing techniques after the World War II. The communication explosion now have drastically changed, and the situation has brought about sea changes in the area of marketing and the related persuasion techniques. The eagerness of the multinational companies' desire to grab a larger share of growing consumer markets like India has also given birth to the need for such companies to resort to public relations and even to recruiting the PR counselors from their respective markets and set up public relation departments of their own so as to initiate public relations programs to develop the necessary public understanding of their business. Amongst the two techniques of marketing for multinationals, they either have a standard product worldwide supported by standard communications, or they develop different products for different countries and then support the program by diversified communications to suit the local conditions. All this generates certain public relation issues to be grappled with, particularly in the later situation. This leads to take a look at the circumstances and conditions prevailing in the various world markets like European countries, Asian and African countries, and even the US and Canadian regions. France and in some other countries of Europe, the managements are very conservative and do not allow any entertainment allowance compared to the US companies. So you cannot take a client for lunch on company expense. This may become a limiting factor for the public relations professionals for socializing with the public. Germany. In Germany, it is considered improper to discuss costs, profits and salaries or to use colorful language in press releases. This may limit the free-flowing expressions in the communications and make it necessary to be a little conservative. Italy. Executives show a detachment from their managements while discussing products, prices as if they are independent businessmen. Italians shun personal publicity to avoid attention from tax collectors. Language may be another limiting factor in the process of effective communications. Great Britain. Public relations discipline is fully developed and has attained considerable maturity in Great Britain. Professionals in private and public organization make all the PR effort to keep the public informed about the policies and functions of their respective organizations. Close relations are maintained with media through press notices, summaries and conferences. Arrangements are made for radio and television features, photographs and public visits. However, the Englishmen are conscious about their moral grounds and seem to be conservative about their racial superiority. Japan. Public relations profession has acquired sufficient maturity. As in the US, press conferences with important executives are arranged by the public relations staff. Writers and editors are supplied with biographies, handouts and background material. Plant visits are arranged with a welcome by the management leaders. Guided tours are conducted, followed by refreshments and souvenirs for the press and even the public. However, managing the Japanese language may be a challenge as a very small percentage of Japanese population knows English. Canada. Canada practices public relations profession as the neighboring US. Key issues of interest to the press include the domination of Canadian industry, business with US, Canadian unity, government-labor relations, inflation and unemployment, education, consumerism, energy problems and the environment. English, in addition to French, make life easier. US. America is considered to be home of public relations profession where the responsibility of running the program belongs to the top management. An increasing number of corporations are engaged in the international public relations as their expansion overseas continues at an accelerated rate. The international public relations of US corporation is usually the responsibility of the president, the executive vice president, the export vice president or the vice president of marketing. The professional maturity of US makes PR professionals much more comfortable. Step 2. Create a communication plan. As a second step, creating communication plan is only logical and a dire necessity. Now that the professional knows his target public and the environment, a logically written out plan of communication is a must. How to say, when to say, what to say, and who will say must all be predetermined with the involvement of all concerned. A professional PR communicator plans the program the way a marketing man plans an advertising strategy. The plan must go through some steps. The plan, once drawn out with care, the method should serve as a roadmap which should tell us where we are today and where we want to reach. In other words, it should clearly state the present situation and the ultimate objectives. Developing an activity calendar showing date-wise activities and events should serve as a roadmap for the professional wherever local or international areas of operation. However, the exercise calls for a great amount of imagination and foresight and should be related to the ground realities for execution. The figure here depicts the exercise in a hypothetical manner, but it should provide a sense of direction to the professionals. Depending on the duration of the program, say 3 months, there should be a 3-month calendar prepared and the events planted in each date with care and considerations for the possibilities of its possible execution. One has to make the infrastructure to see that the program is in place and hurdles in the way should be eliminated. The activity calendar, hypothetical. Once the plan has been worked out, it should give the courage of conviction to PR professional and inspire him to launch upon the program that is in action. Step 3. Implement the plan action. Action stage or step 3 warrants the plan should be put into action with the enthusiasm and seriousness. Many times it is more frustrating than inspiring. By force of habit, people oppose, criticize and throw away the messages. But the professionals know that they can courageously go through this transition and put up a brave front to all types of pinpricks of criticism, and they will ultimately succeed. Political and legal aspects of the communications that are to be floated to reach the target audience should be borne in mind while planning and implementing the PR plan. Ignorance and consequential violation of such aspects can land a professional in difficult situation. The political and legal structure differs from country to country, and anyone operating in a particular country is governed by the host country laws rather than the home country's legal system. Some of the issues to be looked into are nations, state and sovereignty, political risk, taxes, dilution of equity control, expropriation, nation-state of sovereignty. A state is free and independent. It has the right and authority to govern the country without any external interference. It makes its own rules and legal systems, so violation is not allowed. Political risk. Governments do change, but adjustments need to be made according to the new government's policies. May it be marketing or other issues involved. Political stability helps the PR to follow a communication policy over longer periods. Taxes. The tax laws differ from one country to the other. Taxes on expenditure and donations received have to conform to the local policy. Any violations can be risky. Equity dilution control. The open economies welcome foreign direct investments, but the percentage of equity participation is regulated by the government. Expropriation. Governments can confiscate properties and may pay a nominal compensation to the owners. Therefore, if the organization plans some assets in a country, it has to abide by the laws of the land. For instance, if a media organization sets up a printing press or a TV station, the risk of losing it remains. Also, the laws of the host country are governed by some norms of international law. The international community, to safeguard their interests, has developed some agreements and treaties which are morally binding on the governments. Intellectual property rights. One significant factor for the PR professionals is the law of intellectual property concerning the trademarks, etc. The trademarks and other intellectual material registered in one country do not have worldwide recognition. Therefore, due care has to be taken to get approvals from the local authorities to use them. With all the above factors, professionals have to take due care that they don't get caught into violations even unknowingly to incur the wrath of the authorities. Step 4. Measurement of impact. Measurement and evaluation of impacts as a fourth stage is the crux of the job. It is no use just executing your plan with great seriousness and enthusiasm and not keeping your eyes and ears open. The evaluation and measurement activities demand action in 3 areas. Collecting constant feedback during the communication campaign period is crucial for course correction. Remaining vigilant to public reaction is like looking at the weather chart of the meteorological office. Besides the habitual resistance, often the reactions from people are genuine and there is a risk of total rejection of the viewpoint. Therefore, it is important for professionals to keep their ears to the ground and absorb vibration. That which does not fit in the public perception does not sell. So change, chop, modify and adjust. Measurement of impacts at the end of the day makes it vital to know whether the program was a success. Naturally, it is important to know if the plan of communications yielded results in keeping with the objection, whether the campaign moved as per the roadmap and took us to its destination. Since public relations and for that communications is a continuous process like breathing, the program needs repeats either in similar doses or in different profiles, higher or lower, as determined by the outcome of the evaluation process. Conduct a SWOT analysis. For conducting the SWOT analysis, there is need for the assessment of 4 elements of the program. 1. Strengths, 2. Weaknesses, 3. Opportunities and 4. Threats. Look at the figure here. According to Payne, 4 concerns should be addressed when evaluating the effectiveness of a public relations campaign. Define your benchmark, select a measurement tool, analyze data, draw actionable conclusions and make recommendations. Make changes and measure again. If you have followed the steps in the PR process, then you have already identified your audiences and established objectives for each. If your objectives are measurable, then you already have the criteria by which to evaluate the success of your program. If you set the objective of increasing awareness by 50%, then a benchmark has been set against which to measure. The benchmark compares your current situation to your past. Payne also recommends comparing the data gathered to other organizations such as key competitors. Comparative analysis makes the data much more relevant. Instead of knowing how much press coverage has been achieved, it can be compared to how much the competition is getting to determine what is called share of voice. Based on this evaluation, the tools that will best help measure against stated criteria are selected. Generally, the same tools that helped establish the benchmark data are used. If primary research was used to establish benchmarks, then the same methods are repeated to evaluate success. If you surveyed employees to establish awareness and attitude benchmarks, then a follow-up survey is the obvious measurement tool. Probably the most popular evaluation tools used in public relations measure is the output objectives. There are several ways to measure the effectiveness of communication output, but some are better than others. One of the earliest methods was assessment of the number of clippings gathered about the coverage of the program. A press clipping is an article, broadcast story, or online message that mentions the company or the product. Hire a clipping firm. At the end of a predetermined period, the number of clips obtained is examined. This measure is the most simple and convenient way to measure output and is one way to monitor media coverage. Many public relations measurement services will analyze media coverage to evaluate the percentage of articles that contain program key messages, the prominence of the message, for a press release whether it was printed on page 1 versus page 16, in a broadcast how much time was allocated to the story and where it appears in the program, the tone of the message, positive, neutral or negative, and how the media efforts compare with key competitors, share a voice. These organizations provide metrics that help establish benchmarks pertaining to program output objectives and strategies. However, to know if these communications actually affected people's awareness, understanding, attitudes or behavior, primary research such as a survey needs to be conducted. Evaluation and measurement should not take place only at the end of your efforts. You should be monitoring the media constantly to determine whether your message is available for people to see. What advertisers call reach, public relation professionals call opportunities to see or OTS. If the media strategy is not working, course corrections in the middle of the program are required, not after the program has been completed. Although sophisticated measures of communication output have been developed over the years, it is still more critical to consider the outtake and outcomes of those messages. Getting the communication into various channels, be they traditional or new media, is only the means to the end of affecting attitudes, opinions and behavior. The outcomes need to be measured in order to tie back to organizational goals and purposes. To measure attitudes and opinions, the most popular tool remains the survey. Public opinion polls and attitude surveys can be conducted and compared to benchmark to determine whether the message and behaviors of an organization have had the intended effect. Intentions to behave and preferences for purchasing can also be measured through surveys, providing some figures on people's inclinations. Behaviors can also be measured against benchmarks. Increases in employee retention, increased donations and improved sales and investments could all be used to measure behaviors. Often the connection between communication strategy and behavioral changes could be due to other variables, so it is important to isolate and track the impact of the public relations efforts in order to evaluate whether they are the driving force in the change. To cap it all, public relations as generally perceived is not all that gloss and glamour. It is a scientific art of influencing public to build bridges of understanding between the public and the organization, and also to generate response for or against a cause. It is not a strategic propaganda but a truthful effort to mold public opinions in favor of an organization. Therefore, the effort definitely calls for a scientific approach of scanning, creating plan, action and measurement, that is SCAM. Conclusion. The International Public Relations model covers the very fundamental system of running a program, which is an universal system. The international area is fraught with complications. It stipulates the need to know the political, social, cultural and legal aspects of the systems followed by various host countries. This should help to avoid any complications in the process of formulation and implementation of the public relations programs. The controversies or violations of the system can be a self-defeating situation and hence should be avoided. The process is very structured. It suggests that formal research be conducted for formative and evaluative purposes. It requires connecting communication efforts with goals, objectives, and strategies. This process works best with planned efforts such as public relations campaigns and should be ingrained if the public relations professional is to become a strategic communicator. That is all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed this session. See you again. Till then, thank you and namaskar.